Hi, let me introduce who's here. You are all in for a massive treat during this rotation. We have with us the amazing and wonderful Kwame Mbalia, who wrote Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. Folks, if you haven't read this book yet, stop whatever else you're doing, order the book, go pick it up curbside from your favorite independent bookstore, get online, smash all those buttons, get the book delivered to your house, listen to the audio, whatever it takes. It is amazing.
I got Tristan Strong from the boxes that...
Yeah, a number of you received Tristan Strong in your camp boxes here.
Kwame, again, thank you so much for being able to come and talk to us here at Camp Half-Blood Austin branch online.
Thank you so much. My name is Kwame Mbalia, author of Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. That's my name. And Tristan Strong Destroys the World, which comes out October 6, 2020. And it would not be fair to me, to you all, to everyone watching right now, if I was the only one who was introduced.
Yes.
In the Anansi Tales, Gum Baby was a doll Anansi used to trap an African fairy while he was on a quest. But in the story, the doll remained silent and wore leaves for clothes. This one, on the other hand, had on a black turtleneck and black pants. But her tiny feet were bare. And what were those stains she was tracking across the floor? Hey, Gum Baby is talking to you, big boy. The doll marched across the floor. Who are you? I whispered. The 10-inch doll glared at me, climbed atop my foot, and struck a pose. Both arms spread wide. You want to know who Gum Baby is? Gum Baby is the reason you sleep with the door locked. Gum Baby is the reason the sun runs away across the sky. Gum Baby is your nightmare, and people whisper her name and tremble around the world. And that is how we introduce Gum Baby. The reason I felt like we needed a character like Gum Baby is because Tristan Strong deals with a lot of difficult, hard, and sad concepts. We talk about slavery, we talk about death, we talk about grief. And I feel that whenever I'm doing writing, it is important for me to present two sides of the coin. I don't want to always present a story that deals with grief. I want to show joy. I don't want to always present a story that deals with anger. I want to talk about happiness. And Gum Baby, as a character, as she's presented in this book, allows you to laugh, right? She allows you to smile, to have fun, and she is a counterbalance, the opposite to what Tristan is dealing with. If you all want to create a story, or if you all want to write, I want to encourage you to think about characters who, I was in a conversation with Samira Ahmed recently, and usually I would say, think about characters who are voiceless, but she educated me, and I've adapted to say that characters whose voices we aren't hearing, because every character has a voice, it's just whether or not we choose to acknowledge it. So I want you to think about those characters whose voices you might not hear in a story, who might traditionally be overlooked. I think that's where you find some of the most vibrant, creative, and entertaining stories. But along with Gum Baby, you have characters like Brer Rabbit. On the cover of the book, we have John Henry, right? John Henry is a folk hero. John Henry, the steel driving man. John Henry and his hammer, his two hammers, depending on which story you're reading. Another character in the book is Anansi the spider god, Anansi the trickster god. Anansi, I don't care who you want to put him up against, could be, not is, but could be one of the most powerful characters in any story around the world if he just wasn't so lazy. Anansi's mortal flaw is his laziness. And there are also stories where Anansi is helpful because there are two sides to all of these stories. One of my favorite Anansi stories is Anansi and the moss-covered rock. And in this story, Anansi finds this mysterious moss-covered rock, and every time you look at it, boom, you fall down and go to sleep. That's it. And Anansi spends the whole story trying to get everyone else to look at this rock, but normally what happens is he looks at it and falls asleep. That is his big flaw in that story. That's what trips him up every time. So what I want you to do is to think of the silliest adjective you can think of and the most mundane, normal, ordinary object that you can come up with. So, for example, my super flaw that trips me up every time I see it is a fuzzy can of beans. Anytime I encounter a fuzzy can of beans, I have to freeze for 30 seconds. I can't do anything. I can't move. I am powerless against a fuzzy can. A normal can of beans is fine, but if the can is fuzzy, we got problems. So, what is your silly adjective, mundane object? Put them together, and that is what you are powerless against. And what if your enemies ever found out, you'd be in a world of trouble.
Ticklish toaster.
A ticklish toaster. Could you imagine trying to make breakfast? Like you put 2, slices of wheat toast in there, and you go to put it down, and the toaster's like, stop! Like, toaster, I'm just trying to eat here. I'm late for work. Please give me my toast.
Gaseous grass.
I don't even want to think about what happens when you step on it. That's what the sign is for. Stay out the grass. The grass is gaseous.
Mobile meat.
Oh. I mean, are we just talking about like spam sauntering down the street or
inchworming lunch meat?
Oh no.
Digestible socks.
Wait, well, okay. Yeah. There's a whole story to digestible socks.
What about morally gray spaghetti?
So your spaghetti doesn't know if it's on the side of good or evil?
It's morally ambiguous.
Oh, we mean again, you morally gray spaghetti.
Listening hinge.
As in like on a door?
Yeah,
Listening.
immediately break down into tears.
So now I'm just imagining you in the traditional Scooby-Doo breakdown where they're like running through the hallway with all the doors. And you're just in the middle of the hallway, just rocking back and forth and shaking.
Exactly.
They're just listening hinges.
Non-existent beard. Decrepit toenail.
Oh.
Soggy beard.
What's with all the beard comments?
I don't know.
Well, I feel like I'm okay.
Squealing tomatoes.
I have so many comments.
Fluffy pumpkins. Crippling frisbee addiction. Shrieking mug and stale raisins.
Stale raisins?
How does a raisin go stale?
Aren't raisins already stale grapes?
Yeah.
So they're like twice stale. That's amazing.
Laughing mirror.
Okay. I said mortal flaw, not detriment to my self-esteem.
And it just keeps saying it's not about you.
Not you and me.
I was picturing a mirror that you walk by and it's just like, you're not wearing that, are you? I'm sorry. Nah, come on.
Indecisive fridge. Glowing lettuce and flat frogs.
The glowing lettuce concerns me.
That's why I wrote it.
There's too much to ponder about that. These are so creative, and part of the point of the exercise is to have fun, obviously, to see how creative you can be, and then to think about, okay, if the whole point of these is that these trip you up, these are your mortal flaw, what you cannot deal with, is to think about how and why. Why am I defeated by a ticklish toaster? Why does inchworming lunch meat revile me so? Why can I counter against that? And this is the beauty of storytelling. It's coming up with these creative explanations. Some of these might not make it into a story. Some of these could be the linchpin of a story, depending on what you're trying to tell.
Does anyone have any questions they want to ask Kwame?
Kwame, you have some chilling kind of monsters and villains. Can you talk a little bit about where some of them came from?
Absolutely. And Tristan Strong punches a hole in the sky. A lot of the monsters come from the Mid-Atlantic slave trade. For example, on the cover of the book, you see Tristan is fighting these chain-like iron monsters. They are called fetterlings in the book. I pulled these from an actual object called fetters. Fetters were chains that were used to march enslaved Africans from their village to the coast to be loaded on slave ships. So I gave them life and features. And speaking of the slave ships, the bone ships in Tristan Strong were based on slave ships, and they are ships that are made out of skeletons and rib cages, stuff like that. I wanted them to be scary and terrifying and traumatizing because that's what they were to the Africans that were captured and loaded aboard. So it's a lot of taking objects from real life, anthropomorphizing them, giving them characters and traits and attitudes and abilities, and then dropping them in a story for Tristan to defeat or run from as he sees fit.
Nicholas said, do you write every day or structure your writing schedule differently?
If I don't have a deadline, I try to write a little something. So I do different writing exercises, whether it's something creatively like we did here, or just writing 50 to 100 to 200 words every day in pet project or whatever. I have a deadline. You won't see me. You'll just see a furious blur of pages and pencil smoke.
You handwrite things?
I find that I am at my most creative when I handwrite, and then for like some of the meat and bones, fleshing out some of the world building, describing setting and stuff, I can add that in when I'm typing on the computer. So it's really a hybrid for me. And what I like to tell people is I write any way I can, whatever way prompts the most output from me.
Are there types of scenes that you really love to write?
Actually, my favorite scene to write is snarky dialogue. It's like
Gum Baby.
Yeah. Snarky dialogue is like the best.
I have a question about this.
Yeah, Avi, go ahead.
How
much longer until the next book comes out, because I've been waiting.
Thank you for waiting so patiently and for asking the question. Tristan Strong Destroys the World comes out on October 6, 2020.
A day before my birthday.
Excellent. That sounds like a wonderful present.
Are you still writing it right now?
It is done. Right now, they are producing copies so that as many people who want to buy it can buy it. They are...
Right behind you?
Yes. So we have... They are transforming this is what's called a galley or an advanced reader copy, into something like this, where it has a hardcover with a cover flap and a map on the inside. I'm not going to tell you what the map on the inside of book 2 is. I'm going to let you see it for itself. But like, they're sending it out to reviewers. It got its first star from Kirkus, and a star is basically their recommendation for you to read this book, which I could have told you. So
That's huge, though. That's huge.
yeah, very cool. It is, and I've been writing and working on something new for you all to read that I cannot talk about.
So earlier you were saying that like the more background characters can have a more vibrant personality. Do you believe that the characters who are less seen have very vibrant personalities due to main characters following certain templates that are like commonly portrayed?
I believe the whole point of the story is for a character to grow from beginning to end. You should see some recognizable change in that character at the end of the story. How do you get them to grow? What new flaws do you give them to overcome? Because sometimes it can be a little bit boring, and that's why introducing side characters can make things feel fresh and make them more dynamic. And I think that is why a lot of writers and readers fall in love with side characters, because they're allowed the freedom to do whatever, say whatever, and feel whatever way in those stories. And I think it's an ongoing challenge for authors and writers to create main characters that continually feel fresh.
When we were talking, Rosh, about the edits that were coming back on her first draft, did you get editorial feedback from Rick at all during the writing process?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have blanked out and forgotten my first edit letter because it was 27 pages long. I don't remember what was in it. I just know that I had to fix a lot of stuff. But one of the biggest comments I remember from Rick, he was like, put more strange and unfamiliar into the story. Give them something fresh, something new, and then wrap it up in something familiar. And I'm like, thanks. That makes total sense. I will go do that immediately. And what I did was I went to go cry. So
Isaiah and I, apropos of nothing, are making themed candle scents for camp. And maybe they're based on a character. I'm going to ask you a weird question. If you could have a candle scent based on one of your characters, which character would it be, and what might be the 3 main component scents in that
So
candle?
I have the perfect answer, but I guess it's not necessarily a character, even though a character experiences it. In chapter 4, I believe, in chapter 4 or 5, where Tristan falls through a hole in the sky and he lands in the burning sea, he says he gets some of the water in his mouth, and it tastes, I believe the quote is, batteries and warm hot dog water is what the taste is. And I thought,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
If you had a candle scent, what would it be?
Cheez-Its. White cheddar Cheez-Its.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
That would be amazing.
Cheez-Its are the best.
What about a gum baby?
A gum baby candle would just smell like anger, I think.
So smoke. Basically just a smoky candle.
Whatever you think, yeah, it just smells angry. You put it on, you're like, oh, I'm furious.
All right, I've got one thing really quick before they go. Skittles and Cheetos. Those 2 things show up in almost every Rick Riordan Presents book. Is it just a communal love of those things? Or is it a little message to Rick? Is it one of the things he loves?
I wouldn't say it's a message to Rick.
Okay.
I would say it's a threat
Okay.
to Rick. And he knows what we're talking about. And we will keep putting the Skittles and the Cheetos in the book until he meets our demands.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everyone, for having me.
Thank you.
You love you.
Thank you again so much, Kwame.
All right, Isaiah, our next mission is the batteries and hot dog water candle.
Batteries and hot dog water. Yeah.
And Cheez-Its. Don't forget Cheez-Its.